Today I'm going to show you how to change the strings on a steel string guitar. I'm also going to show you how to do a little bit of tune-up on what's called the action, show you how to get the strings neat, and this is going to be a really easy way to change the strings, and it'll work every time. The strings won't come loose and they'll look very neat, and they won't have this, what some people have, which is really long curly bits of string hanging around the sides, which some people I imagine think looks cool, but I think it looks very untidy, so I like to have mine nice and neat like this. So I've known a lot of people with guitars, and I've known a lot of people who take their guitar into a guitar shop and they get someone to change it for them, and the guitar shop does a tune-up on the guitar, which means nothing, probably means just cleaning it like I'm going to do. And so why not do it yourself? Not only does it cost you nothing, except for the strings, but it's also much more convenient not to have to drop your guitar off one day, get somebody to do it and pick it up the next day. So it's a skill you should know, and it's very easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you first of all, I'll tell you when you need to change your strings. So why would you need to change your guitar strings anyway? Well, after a few weeks they get tarnished, and most strings will kind of go dull and dark, especially in this area where you finger them a lot. They'll start losing some crispness and clarity, and you can tell, well, it happens so gradually that you can't really tell. So you just have to say, oh, after a few weeks, if they're looking tarnished or just sounds a bit dull, then you need to change them. Now, I've had these strings on for about 5 or 6 months. Now, these strings are Elixir strings. Elixir. I'm not sponsoring them or anything. I mean, they're not sponsoring me even. I just like the strings. I've tried various guitar strings, and I find the Elixir not only sound better, but they also last a hell of a lot longer, which they're advertised to do because they're coated in a very thin plastic coating, which means that they actually tarnish a lot slower than normal strings. I've had these guitar strings on for 5 months and they're still as shiny as they were before. I've had cheap strings that I bought off the internet, which I've had literally on for 3 weeks, and they've just gone completely dull, and then I have to change them. So that's why I decided I'm going to go with the Elixir. You pay a little bit more, but they seriously last a lot longer, and they're a really nice sounding string. So once you've decided what strings you want, you got to decide what gauge of strings you want. Now, I use a light 12 gauge string, which means that the bottom string is 0.12 of an inch, I believe, and the top string is 0.53 of an inch, 0.053 of an inch. And you can get thicker strings, you can get thinner strings. The difference is that the thicker strings are harder to press down because they're thicker and they're tighter. So for bar chords, thicker strings might be a bit more difficult to play. Really thin strings, the really light strings, are very easy to bend. So if you're putting down a chord, like a C chord for example, and you can then actually move your fingers and you can bend the strings out of shape very easily and cause them to go out of tune while you're playing them. So the best thing to do, I think, is probably just to go for a medium. So this is a 12, it's a light / medium gauge string. You can go down to 10 and you can go up to 14, but 12 is in the middle. So for me, 12 gauge strings, for you, whatever you want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to play a G chord. You can see how that sounds. This is before, and I'll cut this in afterwards and we'll do a comparison of before and after. So I'm going to play with nails and just a thumb. They still actually sound alright, but I've got an open mic coming up next week, so I really want to change them just to add a little bit of extra crispness to my guitar. So what do you need to change the guitar strings? Let me show you the equipment. You need strings. I buy them off the internet, and in this case I bought a bumper pack which contains 3 sets. You can buy them individual strings, you can buy them individual sets. I just found these were cheaper. Strings. You need a twiddler. So what this does is it wraps around the tuning peg and it allows you to easily tighten and untighten them. Now I made mine myself out of some wood. I'm just going to show you that. So all it is a piece of wood hollowed out to the size with a screw in there and a dowel, and it just spins around. But of course you can buy them from any guitar shop, and I would imagine you buy them from the internet. But you must have it because it makes life a lot easier. So you buy your twiddler, I don't actually know what it's called, a guitar string turner maybe. So you need that. You need a pair of pliers with cutters, so you're going to cut your strings when you're finished, and just make sure you don't use nail clippers because that will just put a big dent in the nail clippers and not cut. You need a small screwdriver which you're going to use to prise out the pegs on the bridge, oh, not the bridge, this thing here. Yes, it is the bridge. You're going to use this to prise out the pegs. So these pegs are going to be prized out by this screwdriver, and I'll show you how to use a lever method when I actually do it. You need an Allen key which will come with your guitar, which will fit into a nut underneath behind the fretboard there, and again I'll show you that. And this is to adjust the action once you've fit your new strings. The action is the distance between the strings and the fretboard. So in this is what you would call tuning the guitar. So you're adjusting the action to make it easier to play, but you just want to make it just easy enough to play without causing a buzz. So you don't want it miles away from the fretboard, otherwise it's going to be really hard to press down those bar chords. And you don't want it to be too close because it's going to buzz. So you just have to get it just right. And of course that action has to be changed as seasons change. As it gets colder or damper, your wood and the metal, that's the steel bar that's up this neck, will slightly change size and cause the guitar to bend, to bow or hump it's called, and it'll bring those strings closer or further away from the fretboard. So we've got the Allen key. Here I've got my instructions on which way to turn the Allen key, which I have to look at every time because I never remember. So I'll keep those so I know which way to turn it, clockwise or anti-clockwise. Polish, wood polish to shine up your guitar, because let's face it, we're going to clean it. We want to make it nice and shiny. And I'm pretty sure they'll probably sell guitar specific wood polish, but why bother? Get yourself some Mr. Sheen or something similar, and a rag to clean the guitar when you're finished. Now I would normally do this kneeling in front of the couch, so that this sits on the couch and it doesn't move around, and then I've got easy access to it. Actually I'll probably do it that way. But in this case I'm going to do it on my lap, so I might struggle a little bit, but what I suggest you do is you put it on the couch, you kneel in front of the couch, put all the stuff next to you on the couch, and then it's quite easy to do all the stuff without the thing moving around. So first job, to take all the strings off. Now don't worry about taking all the strings off at the same time. It won't damage or make this neck warp. Some people might say if you remove all the tension you're going to warp the neck, but it's never happened to me. But don't hold me to that, and please don't sue me if it does happen. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this and slowly take your twiddler, put it around any machine head and start undoing it. Just make sure you don't tighten it, else you're going to snap it. So just keep doing that. Turn it, turn it, turn it. Just hold it like that. And turn, 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 turn. Till it gets loose. And you wind that off. Pull it off. String number 2. Just wind it. String number, that's actually 4. Just wind it. Just to get it loose. Take this. Wind it off. 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 Now these ones have to turn the other way, so be careful again. When you're turning them, make sure you're unloosening them, not loosening them. Use your twiddler. Pull it off. Twiddler. You'll notice how easy these things come off because they're not wound round and interlooped into each other and all that kind of stuff, which some people think you have to do to make the string stay on, which I'll show you when we actually do the tightening up. Very straightforward. Because the strings stay under tension, they don't actually need to be looped or tied or crossed over or anything like that. Final one off. Right. Strings off. Of course they're attached to the bridge with these pegs. Now I replaced my pegs with these beautiful titanium ones for some reason. I thought I might get a better sound. I don't know whether they did or not, but they look quite nice. But yours will probably come with normal bone pegs or plastic pegs. So there's a good chance you might break some of these pegs while you take them out. So normally in your guitar you have spare, with your guitar you have spares, just keep them on hand. Otherwise if you break one now, then you're going to have to buy one and put it in another time. So to get them out, just pull them. Simple as that. Now sometimes they're stuck, like that one is stuck, so I can't get that one out. So I use my lever technique now. Take my pliers that I'm going to use to snip and I put them behind the bridge, like so. And then rest my screwdriver against that handle, put it under the little device, the wedge, and just lever down. See how that comes out? Dead easy. Again with this one, move it back. So what you're doing is this, you're preventing scratching your guitar. Take them all out. Doesn't matter, they don't go in any particular order. They're all the same size. There we go. We got them all out. So now these simply pull out. So what you've got at the end of these, I'm going to show you now, oops, is you have these balls at the end. So those are the balls that fit inside that bridge and they actually hold them in. So now you can just take these, you can wind them up, and you can clean them up like that. Throw them in the dustbin. Right, all strings out. So as you can see, the neck hasn't collapsed in on itself. Perfectly straight, even not under tension. So now I've got the nut at the end, which actually does come out. I've lost the bridge piece here, which has fallen out. You can see that piece, that's fallen out. So I'm going to put that back in. I think I've got that the right way. Yes, I haven't. There we go. I can tell because the grooves in there are thinner on the bottom, thicker at the top, so I know that that should be at the top. Again, with these things here, you can actually buy different types. These are all plastic. Most guitars come with plastic. You can buy, not ivory ones now of course, but bone ones. Or you can buy special material ones. You can buy them, you can carve them with your penknife, make them look the way you want to look. want them to look, and apparently they can make your guitar sound better. So if you want to, you can experiment with that. And underneath that there's a wire coil here which is used for the pickup. So all the sound travels down through this device, this plastic bridge, and goes into that pickup there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that to one side for now. Everything else is fine. I can see I've got dust here, I've got dust all over here. Lovely stickers which my daughter put on, and I certainly don't want to remove those because I like them. And let's now clean it. So we've got all the strings off, we can get good access to it. Get our furniture polish straight on and wipe away. And it's just like anything else. When you clean something, you've got a clean car, it always feels that it drives better. And when you've got a clean guitar, you always think it plays better. Maybe you think you play better as well. So I always like to give it a good polish with my patented special guitar cleaning cloth and polish. Might as well do the back while we're at it. Again, the disclaimer, if your guitar is made of some kind of specific wood, which is very expensive, and it does say do not use normal cleaning materials on this guitar, then please make sure that you don't use Mr. Sheen on it. Make sure you go out, buy yourself a proper polish if required. However, as I say, most run-of-the-mill bog standard guitars can just use any normal wood polish to clean them up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go down the frets, shine them up, go around the back, and then I'm going to clean the headstock, which actually gets a lot of dust in it. And this is the opportunity to get right between those machine heads and clean that nicely. And clean around the sides, clean around the back. There we go. Happy with that. At this stage as well, you can tighten up any screws that are in here. Make sure they're all established, not coming loose. You very rarely do, but this is your good chance to tighten them up now. Okay. Now, we're at the restringing phase. Now this is where it's a lot easier if you put it on a couch where it stabilises itself. But here we go, I'm going to do it right on my knee here. So what I do is I get my strings out and I find my 6 strings that I require. And they're all labelled. There's got a little booklet in there. So I assume if I take just 6 out, so I've got labelled with 0.12, 0.16, 0.24, 0.32, 0.42 and 0.53. The 0.53 is a thick E, the 0.12 is the thin E, the bottom. So let's start off by putting in the thin E. So I'm going to put my bridge piece back on. There, make sure it's just settled in there nicely. Take my string out, undo it. I got the piece with the little washer, whatever you call it, ball circle thing at the end, and the other side, probably can't see that, but it's got nothing there. That goes through that point. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it down here. Now, because I haven't put any, I'm taking all the strings out, I can actually get right in here and I can feel around. So what I do now, instead of putting one string in at a time and tensioning them one at a time, I just put them all in like this so that I can get under here and make sure they're seated properly when the pegs go in. So I take a peg, so I'm going to put that in, and what it does is the peg just keeps it in there. So I'm just going to go with my hand, just going to make sure that that peg is actually, that washer thing is flush against the wood. So what I'm trying to achieve, I'm going to put this down, I'm going to show you. So what I'm trying to achieve is that when it's in there, the washer is close up against the head like this, and not down here, and stored against there. Because if it's held against that bottom thing and just happens to hold on there, it's going to come loose eventually. So it really needs to be up against the head, like that. So that's what I'm trying to achieve under the guitar. So that's why I'm going under the bottom. So that's what I want to achieve. So my bridge piece has fallen out again. Put that back in. Right, so let's go again. Put the pin in the peg, make sure the little washer's up towards the top, and press that in. Okay. Number 2, which is the B string. Again, just undo it. Get my peg, push it through, go underneath it. Make sure my washer is up against the body of the guitar properly. Push that in. So we can see there's 2 pushed in there. Right. 2 strings. G string. Peg. Through, hand through. Make sure it's flush again. Okay. So I'm just pushing them in now. Flush to the bottom. They might come out a little bit as I tension them, but I can always push them back in. Let's go for the D string. Careful not to poke yourself in the eye with these things. Try not to bend them, kink them. That won't be any good, it's more likely to snap if you kink them. With the thicker strings, you can feel how it's trying to take that washer down with it and trying to hold it at the bottom. So that's why you need to get your hand in there to make sure that washer is right against the wood body. And final one. Right. So we now have our 6 strings in the guitar. We have these pins down as far as I can push them. And they all go in quite simply, as you can see there. So now we're going to start putting them under tension. So what I do is I start with the small string first. So now, the small string goes through the first peg here. Can we see this? Yes, we can see that. So it goes through this peg. So it's the first peg. So what we do is we line up, we turn the machine head so that the hole, and you'll notice it takes a lot of turns on this thing for that hole to turn around with your hand. That's why we have the twiddler. So what we do is we're going to put it all the way through, and that's now 10. So I've pulled it hand tight. Now this is where the important bit comes in. Because what we do is we cut it before we attach it. So first, there's 2 very important things to know. The first thing is, make sure that you've got the right string through the right machine head. So the first string goes through the machine head on the bottom of the guitar, closest to the nut, or the neck band here. First string. Okay, so what we then do is, I'm going to show you exactly a bit closer up. We take this string that's gone through there, see that? We take it to 2 more pegs. So we take it up 1, 2. That is the length of that. We're going to cut it right there. Right? So that's why you need to make sure 100% it's in the right slot. So we measure twice, cut once. So we've got to make sure this is in, this peg's down, it's through the hole, it's on the nut, and it's to that second, that end peg. So we've got that little bit of length there, and then we snip it. Uh-oh, done. If you make a mess up there, you've got to put a different string in. Right, so let's now put this string in. So all we do is we're going to make sure it turns clockwise. This looking down on it, it has to turn clockwise. I'm sure you can see it's difficult to see. Right, so this is going to turn clockwise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in just at the end. And I'm just going to put it through, so maybe a 2-3 millimeters, quarter of an inch is poking out the other side. Hold it down with my finger and start turning. Alright, now, some people will say you have to put it in, you have to loop it back on itself, feed it back through the hole again, etc. You don't need to do that. You just need to put it in, put it through, so it's sticking out quarter of an inch the other side, hold it, then you see it will bend now. So I've got my finger on it and it's bending. So I'm just going to turn it a little bit more with my twiddler. I'm going to show you. So you can now see it's just through, it's not wound back on itself, it's just bending. So I'm just keeping the tension there with my finger. Very easy. It's not a difficult thing to do. Especially when you sat in front of the couch, and then you just turn it. Now at this stage, when it's done one full revolution, you then pull it tight, you put it in the nut, put your finger on the first fret, you thumb hard on the first fret and hold it there. But now you've got this loose here, and you've got this bit under a little bit of tension. And then you continue to turn it. And if you need to just push that little end bit in there, do so. Continue to turn it, use your twiddler. So this is where your twiddler is absolutely invaluable. You cannot live without this twiddler. Don't even attempt this without a twiddler. Right, we tighten it up. You can see all the slack will go away. We make sure we're in the ridge properly. We'll make sure we're in the nut properly. Tighten it up. And it'll automatically start spooling properly down, nicely. Not on top of each other. Okay, so and stop. When it gets under tension, just stop. Don't worry about if it's in tune yet. Make sure that's pressed down. Right, so that's number 1 done. How easy was that? Number 2, the B string. We put this on the bottom one. Again, the bottom one. We put it through the hole. Okay. We imagine a distance of 2 nuts away. There's a distance. So that's 1. Imagine the other one. 2. That's where we're going to cut it. Okay, so we'll make sure we're pushed in there, we'll make sure we're there, we'll make sure we're on the nut, we'll make sure we're through the hole, we'll make sure we're 2 away, we cut. Again, we put it at the end, just through, so it's looking out the other side of the hole, quarter of an inch. Put it under a little bit of pressure with our finger and turn it. When it's turned 180 degrees, we pull it tight, put our thumb against the first fret, so we've got it under tension. This is still not under tension, and just go, wind, wind, wind. Okay, so we can see there, winding. You'll see the string will tighten up. I've never had a string come undone. Never. As soon as they're under tension, they will stay there forever. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure it's in the nut slot. So that's 2 strings in. Push it down. Press that nut down. Press it down. Okay, so we've got 1 and 2 under tension beautifully. 3. You probably want to fast forward through this video because now you get the idea. However, there are some subtle differences for the thicker strings in that they have to be cut a little bit differently. So we'll put the 3rd one through. This is the G string. Again, make sure it's on the nut. Got it through there, and we imagine again 1, 2 lengths away. Measure twice, cut once. I always remember that. Make sure it's right. Make sure it's in the right hole, which it is. Make sure it's 2 lengths away. 1. You probably can't see that. Okay, let's try it now. So we've got this. Make sure it's 2 lengths away from 1, 2. Cut it off. Okay, pull it back. Should have set my video up a bit better. Okay, put it back so we can see the end. Again, 1/4 of an inch. Hold it with your finger. Turn it. Just press against it. That's all you have to do. Just press against it. Turn it. Once it's gone around 180 degrees, pull it tight against the nut. Keep the tension on it. No tension on there. A little bit of tension here. Thumb on the 1st fret. Between the string and the 1st fret, tighten up. That's 3 strings, push that down. Now what happens is these strings get thicker, they start going more and more up the head of the machine head. So what's happening now with that one, it's getting very close to the top. So what we need to make sure of is that as the strings get thicker, we cut a little bit shorter spare so that it doesn't go right over the top. And then when we get to the really thick one, we cut it just over 1 length there. So let's do those 3. So again, we're going for the D string now. Put it through. Make sure it's on the nut. Okay, now this time, make sure it's in the right one again. Now remember, this is the 4th string, so it goes at the end machine head on the top. 4th string, end on the top. I've done this before when I've put it through the 1st hole and I've cut it. Oh no, no good. So I have to put a new one in. So just make sure every time you do this, before you cut, you look 3 or 4 times and say, is that in the right hole? Then you imagine for this one, this is about 1.5 the distance between that nut and that nut, and you cut it and bingo, you're away. Pull it back. Now this time we're going to turn anti-clockwise, counterclockwise, so the nut, both this twiddle has to turn away from you and the machine head will go anti-clockwise to make it nice and neat. So again, you just hold it till it goes round 90 degrees, 180 degrees, sorry. Get hold of it, put it in the nut, hold it there with your thumb, make sure it's got tension, and then you continue winding. And you wind it all the way. This one's going really close to the top. But because it's cut to the right length, it will not go over the top. Perfect. Okay, press it down. 4 strings. 5. Same old drill. So this one, make sure it's on the nut properly. Make sure it's lined up. Make sure this is correct. And it's just to the end nut, and maybe a centimetre past that. That's all. Cut it off. Pull it back. Get your twiddler and twiddle it away from yourself. Once it gets to 180 degrees, put some tension on it. Put your thumb on the first fret. Twiddle away. Careful you don't snap it. Just want to get it under tension. You don't want to do it too tight at this stage. 5 strings in. One more to go. Thick E string. Line it up. Put it through. Now this one is literally a cut off just past. This is going to be, because it's so thick, it's just past the next machine head. We cut it off there. See where my fingers are? We'll snip it off there. And snip. Put it through. Make sure you can see. Maybe, and we'll twiddle away. So again, 2 or 3 millimeters through the other end. Turn 180 degrees. Put some tension on. Put your thumb in, and then we turn. Doing, doing, doing. Now you see this is a really thick one. It only takes 3 or 4 turns, full rotations, and it's tight. Press it down. We now have a restring guitar. How easy was that? Plus, if you look at the head, it's extremely neat. It's all symmetrical, and you've got no sticking out wires, and that will not come undone, even though we haven't wrapped it round twice, in and out and behind. So that is a perfect job. And no dust, all clean. So now what we have to do, we have to first of all tune the guitar and then check the action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tune it, and then I'm going to show you how to adjust the action, if we need to adjust the action. Pretty much horribly out of tune. So now, this stage of the game, I'll get my tuner, stick it on. It's saying there 2B. So it's low, so I'm going to wind it up. Oh, it's gone. 1E it's saying already, so it's detected it. Gone green. That's going to go out of tune pretty quickly, especially when we tune all the rest in, so let's just do the rest quickly. Now that took a while. Turn it off. Okay, so we're pretty close now. You can tell it's still not in tune, because what's happened is since we tuned the bottom one, tune all the rest, everything goes into tension and it puts everything out of tune. So we have to do the whole thing over again. So I'm going to do that. Yes, bear with me. Should be a little bit quicker. So E's gone flat. So it's really a 2-cycle tuning process after you've changed the strings. Should be a bit closer now. Better. might need 3 or 4 cycles to get that tuned properly. Also leave it an hour or so and it will go out of tune and you retune it. So just maybe just put a little stretch in the strings, little tiny stretch. If you've got a nylon guitar, they go out of tune very, very easily. And so if you're doing this to a nylon guitar, then what you need to do is just really stretch those strings manually and then retune and stretch them and do it again. So with a steel string, not so much. And this is, after all, about how to string a steel string guitar. Right, so let's talk about action. So now we've done the stringing, restringing. We might have different gauge strings, we might have lighter, we might have heavier, we might just have a cleaner guitar, different type of string, so it might just adjust, the different tension might cause the strings to be further away from the neck, from the fret, so that's called the action. So what's going to happen is now you're going to be playing bar chords, let's say on your A, and you're going to really have to press hard. You're going to find it really difficult. I don't know if you've ever picked up anybody's guitar that has a bad action, and some guitars are just almost impossible to play bar chords, and that's because they've got a bad action. People don't know that they can actually adjust that action. So here you go, you found this out. So what we'll do is I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to say, no, it's a bit far out. I'd rather have it a little bit closer. So what I want to do is I want to bend the neck. How do we say it? If it's far out, then I want to bend the neck. I want to bend the neck back so that it will get closer to the fretboard. That's why I need my instructions, because I never remember. So how do we do that? First of all, quite simply, we take strings 3 and 4, which are the 2 end strings. Take the tuner off for now, and we just loosen them a lot. Slack. So that allows us to get our Allen key here, in between these 2 strings, in there. So what we now do, we get our Allen key, and there's actually a bolt, an Allen key nut in here, which you won't be able to see it on this video, but we try and get the key in there. There, it's in. So that's in now. So now I'm going to find out which way to turn it. So I'm going to look at my instructions, which I've kept with me for 10 years. So what it says is, if the neck is bowed, which this one is, tighten the nut. If the neck has a hump, loosen the nut. So this is probably going to be the same for most guitars. So if it's bowed, that means it's like this and the strings are a long way away. If it's bowed, then we tighten it. If it's got a hump, I mean, for example, it's humped like this and the strings are really close and it's buzzing, then we loosen it. Let's just check that again. Loosen for hump. Okay, so it's bowed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this. Now I only tighten it 1/4 of a turn every time. So what I'm going to do, let's tighten it. That's about 1/8 of a turn. But you don't want to over tighten it because it can really make a big difference very quickly. Put it back in and do another 1/8 of a turn. There we go. It's just a minor thing. So this is a matter of doing it, checking it, doing it, checking it, doing it, checking it. Because you don't want to go too far because you're going to get a buzz straight away. Then you can see, I can actually see there and then that actually has adjusted it beautifully. So it looks really good now. So I'm going to put down my fret. Well, obviously I can't play it because I've got those 2 loose still. So what I do is on the 6th string, on the thick string, I'm just going to put my finger there on each fret, go up, no buzz. There's a buzz, see there's a buzz there. See, that's a perfectly positioned finger on the fret, and it's buzzing, so that means it's too close. So what I now have to do is loosen it. So I'm going to loosen it just an eighth, just less than an eighth of a turn, and put that Allen key back in there. Okay, and I'm just going to pull it towards me and loosen it just a tiny bit. There we go. Just a tiny bit of adjustment each time. And again, finger on the first string. Good. Tiny bit of a buzz, but I'm going to assume that's going to go away when I've tensioned those two. So actually I'm not going to. I'm just going to turn it just a tiny little bit more. Again, loosen it. So turn it towards me. Make sure it's in there. You don't want to strip this thing, so make sure it's fully inserted. Just pull it to yourself a tiny little bit. There we go. Fraction. That's it. I'm happy with it. I'll put my tuner back on. I'm going to tighten up those gold strings. Tune it up. Right, yes, I'm happy with that action. It looks really good. Try to play a bar chord. It's nice. Bit out of tune. Okay, so let's tune it all the way from the bottom again. So I think I can hear the difference now. It's got nice, clean, crisp strings. So I'm just going to play a G chord again. And then with my thumb. You can see how that sounds. This is before, and I'll cut this in afterwards and we'll do a comparison of before and after. So I'm very happy. I now have a brand new set of strings. In perfectly, in nice and neat, the guitar's clean, free from dust, the action's correct, it's all good. So I'm ready for my open mic night next Wednesday. Looking forward to it. Alright, well thanks for watching and happy stringing.